I'm going to need someone to take minutes.
Not me.
Not me.
Jim, could I ask you to take minutes? No? Okay.
Yes.
Are you sure? I mean, but you, I also know you're going to be doing a lot of talking, so therefore it's hard to do both.
Will that make it easier?
Or
But she knows
easier.
what she's talking about.
Okay. So let's call the meeting to order at 2:03.
203.
We can then start with approval of the agenda. So apparently the agenda was sent out in email. I couldn't find it, but I was sent it to me. I now have it. Basically, it is public comment, discuss economic developer position, public comment, and adjournment. So it is a one-topic agenda.
I make a motion to accept that.
Okay. Is there support?
Support.
Motion support to accept the agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, agenda approved. So, public comment.
I'm just gonna listen.
Are you sure?
Yeah, we'll see what, yeah.
Your
I might comment at the end.
email was good. I thought maybe you want to touch on some of those points.
Well, I mean, I think I said all I needed to say.
Come on.
Okay. I think I said what needed to be said in the email. I feel like we owe it to this town and this community to do a better job at managing our downtown and managing the city. Like, for example, memory lane detailing, he painted his curb, he blows the sidewalk every other day for this city. And we have a river walk, it's an underutilized asset. It is our best asset, not everyone has that. And so to continue to go down a road of failed economic directors is not something that's gonna do anyone that has any business or any building in this town any justice. And it's not gonna do the community justice either. So I think that the board needs to go, like, and also, really quick, the strategic plan, we're not following it whatsoever. And I think that's a disservice. We had, I'm not sure who did that, but obviously educated professionals that grow economic development. So it's like a business plan. We need to follow it for it to work. And if we're not following it, we need to reorient ourselves and do so. Like food truck policy, I own the Fillmore. I'm for food trucks within, they need to contribute to city taxes or city fees or whatever to make it more economically prosperous, but it still needs to happen. And that was something in the strategic plan that should have been like, hey, this is our proposed thing, speak up now or don't, but we need more community involvement. There's lots of things that I think can make it better. But I think that following the strategic plan going forward seems like the best laid plan. And I think it should be outsourced. Because I think that with a $260,000 budget and we're spending 60 to 80 on getting someone, we're not getting the best bang for our buck there. And there's not a lot you can do with that kind of money when we're talking economic development.
So when you say outsourced, you're talking about outsourcing the role of economic development to,
I'm talking about accountability to doing a better job in this community. Like, economic development, it needs to happen, but I think, as I said in my email, we need to reinvest in this town. We need trash receptacles, we need to handle the trash. We need to make sure our river walk says, come and walk on me. Like, it doesn't say that right now. And we need to make sure that our blighted buildings that have been boarded up for the 3 years I lived here, there's something done about that. And the fact that I don't want to walk down River Street anymore and see the trash blowing around. I don't want to put gloves on and pick it up every other day and send staff members out to do the same. You know, I look at 321 River Street, which is for sale. It's been for sale. I've been in the building countless times. The guy won't give you any information, but it's for sale. Last I heard from a meeting was some sewer problem. I think that's fixed. He won't give you any information. He won't give you rental information. And he will not budge on his price, and it is not that value, but yet the facade is falling off. And some days I just come into work and I get so mad at looking at that building where it's falling apart, and he's not willing to do anything, and the city's saying, you know what, that's okay, you can have that. And I don't agree. And then you go down, I mean, I could go down the street, there's great buildings, and then next to an eyesore doing nothing for tax value. It's doing nothing for somebody that would bring in business, whether that's a small boutique retail, which we need more of, that, you know, or craftsman or whatever. It's doing nothing. So,
In your email, you also indicated that you had some proposals or plans to share at some point.
yeah, if it's, I put a little bit of thought into it. I think the events need to stay. The Imagine Manistee, thing that the chamber did, and then I would be willing to talk about that. I think before I do that, I think the DDA needs to decide what direction they're gonna go, and then I would see if it's something that, I could comment on.
Okay. Okay.
What is your name?
Nicole, last name is now.
I'm totally impressed with your passion.
Thank you.
No, I thank you for being honest and sharing.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
I'm sure you're talking for a lot of people.
I think so. I mean, I talk to other business owners, and I think that we can go backwards and say this DDA director didn't work, this one didn't work. But I think this is a time when it could be spun for like the DDA to rebrand itself as a community organization and get people behind you. And ask for volunteers and ask for more, and with the intention that you're going to give more. And sometimes it's just a perception thing. You know, grant writing, when's the last time we've written a grant for anything in this district? It's free money. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit of work, but this process is so streamlined that we just have to decide what the focus is, focus on that, and for whatever reason, unless it's like an act of nature, we need to let it work and not deviate from it. But I do think the events need to stay. The events make a community. I volunteered on lots of them. I'm volunteering on Boosters Abroad. And it's going to be great. I'm actually really excited that Elks is hosting it. But we can't ask we can't ask every event to be picked up by the Elks because they have the manpower. Not every small business has the manpower.
So what kind of forum would we get more business owners together to?
That's a really good question.
Like to come to a DDA meeting?
I talked to several of them. I walked here, and so I talked to several of them. It's hard. Like, noon is hard.
Right, okay.
2 is hard. But I also show up at 8 a.m. merchant meetings, and they're not there either. So I don't know what the best way to do that was, but I've definitely, anytime I've needed something from them, like with past TGIF events, I always walk the street and I go into them and, but they have to want to get involved too. And I think sometimes it's hard to get involved into what can appear to be a stagnant ship. Nothing has really changed since I've lived here. I've lived here 3 years. That's bad. It's not good. The Riverwalk looks worse. Lane's painting curbs across the street. He's blowing the sidewalk. There's been a few great businesses like Manistee Beverage and North Channel, but as far as like city infrastructure, development, picking up the trash, I started complaining about the trash emails last year. That's unacceptable for every resident in this town. So, that's my.
No, I think that's really great, and I guess my only comment is I know that there have been grant applications. I had talked to Tyler before he left.
Mm-hmm.
The sad thing is, and this sounds like an old excuse, the bureaucracy turns so slowly in the entire grant process. But I guess
Right.
even if you knew what was out there
Right.
and what we're waiting for, it just might.
But I talked to Tyler about the MSU grants with that vision also before he left. And it was my understanding that he didn't even apply for them because there wasn't a consensus to apply. That's
That was
my,
a different program that
Yeah.
we did not apply, we made a decision to not apply because one, there was a very low probability that we will be awarded a grant. Two, it was extremely tight schedule. And three, based on the requirements for the grant, we did not have the project or information on the project that they wanted. For example, the one we're looking for for the grant was for the American Cleaners property.
Mhm.
And at the time, we did not have renderings, we did not have pro forma, things which are being done now under a different funding source.
Mhm.
So,
So what grants have been applied for in the last?
Well, I
18
think
months?
he was just alluding to, we got a grant at roughly $30,000 to basically take the project for the American Cleaners lot that the DDA now acquired and moving that project forward to essentially a bidding process for a development project on that property.
in addition to that, the MEDC has a grant program
Mhm.
that we started applying for, but the property owners who benefit from that never provided the information on the buildings, therefore we put that on hold.
And
there
those grants were for basically residential
Improvements to their
developments. on
Right,
property,
but
so-
I feel we're, for lack of a better terminology, we're pushing water uphill with people. I know Tyler spent a lot of time on ventures that aren't gonna come to fruition anytime soon. And so at what point do we need to look at doing things differently with the resources we have?
And
Well,
and-
any,
That's what we'll go
yeah,
back to. That's what
Yeah.
our discussion.
yeah,
Yeah.
any of those programs are not going to happen within a month, 2 months, or even a year. I mean, the 3, 4 years ago, the DDA supported grant applications to MEDC for 2 of the developments that we finished recently, the Edgewater and the North Channel. You know, those are $2 million grants
Mm-hmm.
that came to the projects, well, 1.7 million, that through efforts of the DDA and the private owners. But remember, 4 years ago, and we just recently, finished the 2 projects. So
Multi-year process.
Mm-hmm.
it's a very long process, and you have to have, in order to pursue grants, you have to have a lot of upfront information that takes time and money to generate. American Cleaners, again, a good example.
Mm-hmm.
We're already probably
Okay.
2 years into that.
Yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
be applying for 2 grants, but that's what we're doing right now. And I don't know, is this part of public
No,
comment?
this is public comment.
Okay,
Just wanna-
okay.
Right, so
But
I
we can talk more about
wanted one comment, and I appreciate everything you said. And I understand from your perspective all of the points you've made. However, I would disagree on some things because I think we are pursuing our strategic plan. We are working on every one of those items that you highlighted in your email.
Then you're not updating it. Like, I mean.
You may
public-
not, you may not see results, but that doesn't mean we're not working. And the second point is that many of the items you described as being issues are not the purview of this organization. We're bound by state statutes to what types of things we're supposed to be working on. Many of the things you talked about are either city responsibility.
The city would tell me that it's DDA responsibility. They would, I mean, they
And I don't disagree with that, and that is an issue that we've been struggling with for well over a decade.
Right.
But, and then the other thing is, and it's come up multiple times in this conversation, is the inability to get building and property owners to join into a move forward type
Right,
mentality.
but does the city not, okay, who enforces what? Because the
City.
city tells me it's not their job.
It's.
They literally, and then I've heard it's the city manager stuff. But the point is whoever job it is, nobody is doing it. So the city can point at the DDA can point at that, you can point at the residents, you can point at property.
We raise that issue with the city routinely.
Right,
So we're doing what we can do.
right.
We're as
So then
frustrated
go
as you are.
Go enforce the ordinance or the city.
But that's not,
needs to-
again, that's not our
We can't.
responsibility. We can't.
Statutorily, by law, we cannot.
So it's
we
the
can
city's
stream-
job to
Yes.
enforce the blight ordinance.
Yes.
That's right.
And
DDA has no.
So why doesn't, okay, well, all right,
Cite
let's do it
someone.
city council then, because it's just, I mean,
But then,
you have a jurisdiction of what you really don't have. People are gonna complain about trash, they're gonna complain about the blighted buildings, but if your hands are tied, then I understand where we're at in this position, do you know what
so,
I mean?
right,
Yeah,
and so,
Yeah.
trash you mentioned, we discussed that many months in the design committee, made some recommendations to council, because ultimately it's council's action to move that forward.
right, and that's all,
And-
because now I'm on
and
a
it's-
trash ad hoc committee that's
Good.
taking 8 weeks
Good.
8 weeks to do anything.
And then another example is Historic District Commission, which
Mhm.
kind of overlays a similar geography to the DDA, has open permits for 2 buildings that were initially created in 2008
and
and 10, with an intention of being done within a year. It's a decade later, and they're still offering extensions to them
Mhm.
with no progress.
Right,
Again, that's a different part. I mean, it's all city, and therefore I understand why someone like yourself, or probably most people downtown, have a perception the DDA is not doing anything. But then when you get into the details, well, we can't. That's not our responsibility. That's HDC, or that's council, or that's DPW. And it's, quite frankly, not working. I will agree with you there.
mhm.
And I think we may be as frustrated as you are in some of this.
But I think, Nicole, because you brought all these issues up, maybe you and or whoever can help us sort through this.
Yep.
Because they are
We need
all
help.
right.
We
We
need-
have had discussions, and I own a building for 20 years,
Yeah.
and I understand your frustration. But it might help if we could just tell you what we are trying, why we can't, and then a citizens group could give us a
and I think
suggestion.
one of the biggest things your being here shows that we're doing a poor job of communicating what we are doing.
Absolutely, even maybe.
It's not updated on the website, like correct me if I'm wrong, but there is still no food truck policy. It's like, it's not even that it's that big or it's that thing, but it's like, hey, this is what we've done for the community, this is what we're doing for downtown.
But again,
Check.
food truck, that's city council, that's not.
We have approved outline
Right.
of what we'd like, and I thought I'd move forward to city council, so
Right.
it sits to wherever that has to
Because
go.
we had a food truck committee.
But
that
even if it said
spent-
pending to city council,
Right.
I think
Yep.
it would be better
Yep.
communication
Yep.
and everyone would be
Communication is
like, well, then we're gonna go harass the city council.
Well, tonight,
Love it.
tonight is the night.
Tonight's your night.
Oh, yeah, she's already interviewed.
So.
Good. We'll see you tonight.
Okay, maybe.
But
All right.
thank
Okay.
you so
Thank you.
much.
2+ years ago, in December 8th, when Mr. Taylor got here, one of the first things on his agenda was to renew the TIF plan. Now we're coming up on year 3, and we still don't have a renewed TIF plan. City staff insists that the DDA doesn't contribute enough towards the maintenance of the downtown district, given the taxes that they capture. I was on the TIF committee. Who else was on it? Karen was on the
Karen,
TIF committee.
myself.
The city wanted more, and I think several of us opposed the idea. But, you know, when you get into those things, I think it's like Barry says also, I went to the Historic District Commission. And when they had the permit renewals up there, the people that were asking for renewal weren't even present at the meeting. And then I asked the question, how long have these permits been open? One of them 2008, one of them 2010. So, you know, we're talking 10 years, 8 years. And then my question to the Historic Commission was, what, if any, progress has been made incrementally on the renewal of these permits? kind of like a building permit. You go to the state and you get a building permit, and you've got 12 months to complete your construction. You know, you can sit there for 10 months and do nothing, and nobody can cite you for that because you have a valid building permit with a finite date to it. If they keep extending the periods of time, and what they did in that meeting was they extended them for 6 months, requiring them to come forth at the end of that 6 months and show what progress they're making or what the timeline is or what has been accomplished. I can't see that we keep renewing permits when nothing has happened. I would agree with you, but as long as they have a permit, they can't be cited for blight. As soon as the permit's not renewed, then there is authority to cite someone under the blight ordinance. But you're correct there. That's a city manager function. Ordinance enforcement falls under the city manager.
And that's an
Supervision of the
agenda
city
point.
manager falls under city council.
We're reporting on, actually, everything Jim said. Design was reporting on the progress with the renewals.
So, I know that that was a long public comment session, but I felt it was appropriate and necessary, partly because of tonight's meeting. I think, for whatever reason, the DDA is being portrayed in our community as the scapegoat of all of our problems. As a board, I don't think we feel that way, and therefore I really wanted to have that conversation, especially in light of that renewal process. So forgive me if it did get us off track, and I know timely meetings are a concern of people, and I'm probably the
I
biggest
sit here for another
issue
6 hours.
with making them quick. So with that, let us move on to our topic of the day, which is our economic developer position discussion. We started this last week at our special meeting, decided we needed time to focus on just this topic. Here we are. Karen has created some documents for us and handed them out. I will turn it over to Karen since you've come most prepared.
Well, in this information, got an extra one for you. This is one document I can't share, it's not mine to share, but this will be some of the stuff we'll be talking about.
Oh, good.
Are there more copies somewhere?
Right next to you.
So,
So, Val, Barry, and I all went and met with the chamber and got some idea about what they were doing. They are interested in developing a 501(c), which is an economic development organization. There has been some conversation that organization, Mark Bergstrom had been involved from the county in working with them as well, kind of see what we can do as a collective, community-wide, to get some sort of economic development. I think we all try to get it going, but we never get it to take hold. So this was an opportunity to talk with everybody about what are you doing. Also, Filer City has their own economic development person on contract. They do a contractual basis. They are also interested in doing something collaboratively. I know the city wants an economic development. Where that will go, I don't know. But I do know that the county is interested in participating in this. So that being said, we sat down and tried to talk with the DDA or the chamber about what they have. And so in front of you, and this is their presentation. It's not for me to be able to give to everybody. I mean, I put copy and confidential on here. I didn't get approval. I didn't hear approval in our meeting that we should really share this everywhere. So I'm just going to give
When
an
was the
overview.
meeting?
Where was it?
You said you met with the chamber.
10 days ago?
Okay.
Maybe it was before our last.
What's the date on the chamber's proposal?
They They sent this to us last Wednesday.
Oh,
But
so this is recent, because I know that we've had.
it is
some-
recent, but most of what is here hasn't evolved much from previous incarnations.
Okay, so this is
So-
October of this year.
Yes, but that is when we received this. And there were some changes, but not a lot. So,
We need October.
Looks like the same proposal the chamber made to council back during the budget process.
but I mean, if I can say, I wouldn't focus on the chamber proposal because I think the purpose of this meeting is for us to figure out what we want. And then once we decide what we want, then we should go to them and say, can you deliver this to us?
Right.
And if this is a vehicle for that, or if it needs to change significantly to meet our needs, that is what I think we should focus on.
And Barry is right, so with that, there is another form that I passed out to you. And the one side has like a listing of 4 things. We can do what we've done before, and that's hire a director, and we're gonna increase that to 70,000 a year. So that person would be hired, and no benefits, they would run the office, same old downstairs. You have them doing 80% of what we thought would be economic development, and 20% of what we thought were other tasks and duties.
So the difference between what we just had with Tyler and this is a little bit more money.
Correct.
So the idea being a little bit more money will solve all our problems.
Right.
I'm being a little
And
sarcastic
and
there,
that's-
sorry,
and
I
that's a
shouldn't.
good
Yeah,
point.
you are.
It's a good point, because I will continuously go back to, we have our budget, and I heard, well, we'll take $5,000 here and we'll just shift it over here to your personnel line, and that'll cover us so that we can make another 70,000. And again, when I do budgets, you don't just take from your major budget and put it in your personnel line, you know, because your personnel lines are your sustainability lines. Those are the ones you have to be very practical with and know that you have the funding from year to year in order to afford it. So just taking it from here and patching it over there just is like, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Budgets can always be amended.
It can always be amended, but we have not talked about that. I just wanted everybody to know that we're.
I think what you're saying is from a sustainability standpoint is, once you commit to a human resource, those funds are locked up.
Right.
They're never, you can't like say, oh, well, this, next year we're gonna cut that 20%.
Right.
You can do that in other areas, but making that commitment says, that's first and foremost allocated, now we have to run the rest of the organization with what's left.
And again, looking at maybe, you know, your cost of living, typically 2.5 to 3, 2 point something right now is where the economics are at, but.
And even in our conversation around that, there was discussion, although we didn't act on it, that we probably really need some part-time resources to offload some of the administrative details so that this person can actually do economic development activities, which is more money that we don't know where it would come
Well,
from.
and
So all of those things, in my mind, make that a little bit murky. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but I believe there will be significant cuts in other areas of our budget, whether that be downtown flowers or Riverwalk or other things that we're spending a lot of the rest of the money on.
Well, again, we got into the situation with Tyler as we had with, previous directors or director of so much of the person's time being committed to, actually running the festivals.
Right.
And, we had more conversation about this, last time. And again, I will say that while I agree we need the festivals, the city needs the festivals, there's no doubt about it. But the DDA should not be the one running festivals. Other DDAs in other cities do not run festivals. You look at the other communities around us, Ludington being one example, you have community organizations running the festivals. We now have the Elks that has taken over the Booze, Brews, and Brats, which will be great. Now, and if some of these other ones, the downtown sidewalk sales and men's and ladies' nights, those aren't really festivals. I don't know what the DDA, does for that, other than maybe paying for some advertising perhaps. Ones like those. The other, real big one, of course, is hops and props. If we could have another organization to take that over and run that, because how many years have we done hops and props, and it really has not been performed very well.
So what I've heard numerous times, and I agree that we don't want our DDA director doing events. We will, I know it's on our agenda for tomorrow, but we will talk more about events. But I hear very clearly, and I think everybody believes the same. Our DDA person should not be running these
Our
events.
economic development
Right.
person should not
Right.
be.
Should not be running.
Which are
Spending-
one, right.
Right,
Which are
and,
one
and,
person.
but what's the model then that allows events to continue?
Well, it's in
And,
here.
and I'm just saying that that's where we get a little bit hung up.
Right.
Yes.
So we have another option, which is option 2, and I keep pushing for retention. What you want to do is bring somebody in who's going to be willing to either move to our community or is in our community, take this position, stay as a retention person, somebody who is going to cultivate and work a plan and see it to the end and maybe stay for a few years. Those always require benefits. Those type of persons are persons that if I'm going to move from one city to another, if I'm lucky enough to have a spouse that maybe has full benefits, that's great. But if I'm not, I need those benefits. That's a retention thing. That's just how we advertise that way. So in that proposal, I'm looking at a $65,000 salary, which is pretty good. That's about an adequate, it's probably a little bit on your high side. Usually it's like for a bachelor's level professional, it's like 40 to 70, I think. So that's pretty good salary.
For this size DDA, 65 in benefits will attract experienced people.
Yeah, I think that's the
If we
key.
go to the right,
What you're saying there is it is on the higher end, but as we've talked about in the past, we're really looking for someone with experience, not to be training someone. And we've had the conversation that we did spend a good amount of time training our last director. Even though he was more than capable, it still led to a slower uptick of producing results because that was the path we took.
Right, and I think we should really focus on, individual's experience rather than the emphasis being on the education background.
So we have the ability, and again, your benefits, depending on your packages, can go from 25 to 30% of that salary. So I went for the 65,000 salary, did a 30% benefit, because I know that some of the benefits, even in the city, are a little bit richer. So your total for your cost of that individual would be $84,500 for that one person if you added benefits. So that's our second possibility. There's a third possibility that you have your DDA director and you hire an assistant. This is what people have been talking about, the whole thing about events. That person, do you want an event planner or do you want somebody who's coordinating with other organizations that are doing these events? Keeping everything really focused for what the DDA needs. The only thing about other organizations pulling on events is that now it becomes theirs and you have no oversight to what's going to be done. So you kind of want to have somebody who can work and coordinate with those other, or cultivate those other organizations to carry these events on. So
but
that
we
might,
but we can only do that if we have financial.
well, that's what I'm going through here. Yep, you would hire an assistant. You have two possibilities. Now, this is only two possibilities. There's a million other ways to go with this. But I took an average of an assistant, a clerical type of position, is about $12.50. You can go up to, we started about $13.25. So it all depends. So I took the $12.50 and I said maybe 20 hours over 52 weeks is $13,000 for a part-time job. Or you can have this person have a full-time job, again, bringing in the benefits, so that jumps it up to, a full-time job at $12.50 is $33,800. Now, things that Val sent us was the listing of all the different tasks that could be done. And I looked at that and I believe, yes, those are all the things that can be done. However, there are certainly other things that need to be taken care of, such as the actual office management and maintenance. The phone calls and the emails, of course, are in here, and those are really important. The emails would also be like to, like the DDA has its own email, and she would ship it out to whoever, or he would ship it out to whoever. You know, they're kind of the hub of that office. I also think that grant management and grant proposals could be put through somebody like this. A lot of times grant writing is really the research and the putting the process together. It might take somebody who might have, maybe a degree or education or training in developing grants, but the actual grant proposal easily put together through somebody who has some office management or some ability to do that assistant job.
What is this?
This is what Val sent out a long time ago.
The handwritten one?
She's, administrative DDA responsibilities. She had sent that listing out.
So that was probably the spring when we were talking
No,
about.
it was probably about 2 meetings
Okay,
ago.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Was that the special, from a product of the special meeting then?
could have been. She
No.
said she was gonna send it out, she did. Yeah. I just am happy that.
She sent it out with the purpose of making sure that we understand, these are all the things that still have to get done in our focus on economic development.
Let me add, if I may, one more thing that I think should be appropriate for the DDA, or the DDA should be doing, is that we should be a marketing, I guess, maybe for lack of a better term, our downtown or our district to developers and other businesses for either, relocation to here to grow this downtown. I think that's what a DDA, that's one of the, aside, I mean, that's to me is economic development. When you're trying to reach out to, or actively reaching out to developers and other businesses to, locate in our district.
And actually, I did put that in here somewhere, I don't know where it is, but we do have, and I think courtesy calls are important. I think that that's
Yes.
just a outreach thing that is, helps with your PR. Plus, on top of that, we have brochures and all that stuff. We have to have somebody who is kind of centrally located, who's doing all that type of informational stuff on the DDA. And I had talked about having welcoming packages, kind of what you're talking about. If somebody's interested in our area, we should have like a package together that we can kind of ship out and say, here it is, this is what you need, this is where our specialty is, this is what we can do. It'd be nice to have the analysis of the downtown in regards to housing projects. If we wanted to redo and have livable apartments for maybe, middle-income people in our downtown, there would be that research project or whatever that would say, here's the sites that you should work on. So it's just a welcoming package that allows people and developers to know what they're looking for. So that's your option 3 as well, is to hire that additional person. So you have a full-time person, then possibly an addition of a part-time or a full-time. If we were to do the full-time, of course, if we were to do the part-time, to our personnel line, that would be $97,500. So that's your $84,500 for your director, and then $13,000 for your part-time assistant. If we went with a full-time, it would be $84,500 and $33,800, which is $118,000, $300 for that personnel line for the DDA, if we would do it that way. The fourth option, and there'll be more, but this is just what I came up with, is the contracted out. If we were to take our job description and these responsibilities, it would be an ability to kind of say to the 501(c), maybe like the economic development group, this is what we're looking for. Are you interested in this type of contract relationship? The proposal for the 501(c) is to be a private and public entity brought together so that everybody has money that they're putting on the table. I think this is a great idea for the community.
Guys, excuse me, just a second. In my notice that I sent out. We were meeting downstairs on the second floor conference room,
Okay.
because I think this room is booked. I don't know what time. So I just saw someone looking.
That
at
was
one of
Cindy
the- It was
Lokovich.
who?
Cindy Lokovich from Thad's office.
Okay, let me go and clarify.
Okay.
I'll be back. We probably have to move downstairs. I reserved the downstairs
Okay.
conference room all
Okay.
afternoon.
So the other page kind of has that look of what the 5013C would look like. And again, this is just a proposal. Their proposal, that discussion with them just got my brain going and thinking, okay, well, what if there was a 5013C that's interested in economic development? Would we want to join that, or would we want to contract with them to meet our needs? Again, our needs would be what we put down in our job description with this expectation. And so that gets, in that contractual relationship, we get to be the managers of what are the outcomes. You know, we can be very detailed outcome in regards to, we want to know that you're spending 80% of the time, you know, at this particular, what we call cost center. So if you're doing economic development, that's the cost center for it. If you're doing marketing and PR, this is the cost center. We could build a system well enough, I'm sure, that they would record, and so that every month at our meetings, we could have a printout or some sort of idea of where the person's spending their time and how valuable this particular stuff is.
We have to go downstairs. We were scheduled for the second floor conference room,
Okay,
because there is another meeting here.
All right.
you will follow us, right?
So and I came late, so I think that.
Let's take a 5-minute break
Yeah.
as we relocate.
I apologize for being all sweaty. You know what?
I don't know who's
Sometimes I'm
coming.
not-
Well, let's-
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah, we don't
Most
know.
groups do not use this.
Here, city council meeting tonight.
Yes.
Karen, can we get tonight so the city council meeting?
I can.
So Rachel and I cannot,
Oh, okay.
so.
So we need to talk a little bit about it before we get our stuff together.
Okay, let us continue.
Okay, so you were talking, you were on item 4.
Yes.
Yeah. So. I know my notes. Okay. So, item 4, again, looking at a 5013C type of organization. And, you know, again, it's just another organization that would be able to contract and be able to provide us what we need in order to make sure that economic development continues to grow and expand. Now, there's this idea that comes out of the DDA is a 3-year contract, or not DDA, the chamber is a 3-year commitment. So some organizations are throwing in $20,000 or $30,000 for 3 years. So 20, 40, 60 over the years. My thought is in this, if this played out, and again, there's a lot of ifs, if this played out and we brought what we have available, that $65,000 for our person, we could throw money into a pot. That pot could probably easily grow over $100,000 with the other organizations getting involved. So we could also say, what about an administrator, a director, and an assistant? Here's our money, this is what we're looking for. So we're looking for assistant services and we're looking for a full-time administrator. Or we're looking for 50% administration. I don't know, all of those details would be really what the board would have to hammer out in regards to a contract issue. The biggest thing that and I've been very frank with the chamber, I've heard them at the city council meeting, I've listened to them talk at our commissioners meeting, I've had meetings with them. It's a great proposal, however, it's still loose. And when they came and did the proposal to us, I think several months ago, I had said the same thing, was it doesn't really have any meat to it. What are you really going to give us? So since that time, I think some of us have talked about this, and it's like, it's not really what you're going to give us, it's what we're going to buy. We have to put together our expectations of what's going to happen in the downtown district and what we want to have done and what we need. So that's, for lack of a better word, in my world, we call those RFPs, a request for proposal. I would put it together, or we would put it together, and I would say, I want all of these things that are at the top of our job description, and this is how we want it done. We want economic development, done 80% of the time. We want, follow-up phone calls or visits, actually, not even phone calls, visits to be done, maybe 10% of the time. We would have that contract design. So those are your 4 options. The fourth, also gives us the ability to afford an assistant to also work in that. And the reason that I keep pushing the assistant, and I think, you've made a lot of good points on that. We don't need to be in the business of doing events. However, I think I've heard several times from business owners, the events are important. When I had the restaurant down there, we looked for that foot traffic all the time. It was important for us to have all those going on. When we were down on West End River Street, and so, we were really hoping people were going to walk down the street. So all that type of stuff I think is really important, and that assistant would be able to collaborate that and work on those type of things.
And I think, and Tyler had stressed this through the budgeting process, is our events make money for this organization. So if we're not doing the events, we are cutting our revenues.
Right.
And, for example, and I'm sure, because Val just sent out the financials for tomorrow's meeting, and I'm sure not all of the Hops and Props expenses are in yet. But as of right now, Hops and Props made $24,000. That covers practically
2,400 or
$24,000. So that one event raised $24,000 for this organization. If we were to cut that event, we created a $24,000 hole. Or at a minimum, no, not
After expenses?
Yes, so
Including the
currently, there's 44,000 in revenue and 20,000 in expenses for that event. I'm sure there's some expenses that aren't in yet, but in past years, that event has netted between $10,000 and $20,000. Tyler's always been saying to us, we can't just eliminate events because he's concerned about the budget. Budgets, we can sort through that, but my point is, if events are run well, there's enough money there to be paying people to do the events. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the model is we should be doing it. We could point out to somebody else, look at what this is, maybe you would consider taking this over because, of that. So,
My point, is my whole point again with it is that an economic developer, director, or whatever the title is, our economic developer isn't supposed to be the one running the events. So that's becoming more apparent that we do need somebody else to run the events.
Right.
I also want to say that, in my opinion, if we have somebody else doing our economic development, such as a chamber or another organization, and I said this before, that I don't think that whatever the organization is going to have our interests as top priority, because whoever it is doing the economic development for their organization, that organization takes priority. And, you can't answer to two bosses.
And I think that's, from my perspective, getting hung up on the chamber proposal.
Well,
let me finish. And I think Karen has been careful in her wording because she's always called it the 503C, which I think she's alluding to the fact that for it to be palatable to us, it needs to be an independent organization that the chamber is contracting with, that we are contracting with, that everybody is. So there is no owner, there is no one organization that owns it and then, you know, they've got their secret agenda that they're doing and then, you know, they'll give the time of day to everyone else that's funding it. I really think to be successful, it needs to be an independent organization that the chamber is participating in the same manner we are. And that's not their proposal right now. I think their proposal as it is a non-starter. But that doesn't mean there isn't a model that's out there that does work to better address. Now, you're still gonna run into the issue that you have then multiple masters and, you know, this organization, this much money, this much money, this much money, you have to split your time. You're gonna have to solve that. But here's my point is, our track record shows that we're going to get a new director every 2 to 3 years. And that's the rule for DDAs and Main Street programs in the state. That's typical turnover.
It's not necessary.
But let me finish that. Is right now, for the next 6 months, we're going to get 0 economic development activity. We get some on board, they've got a year ramping up, so we're getting this much. At least through working with a different organization on a contract basis, we're more assured that from day one, we're going to get what we're asking for. And if we don't, they're in violation of our contract, and we end the contract and we go back and do something else.
Very.
So, I'm sorry, I cut off a lot of people in that conversation.
Two issues I want to quickly. One, simple, the events. I have been saying for years that a downtown and a city without events is not going to do well. Okay? They're absolutely necessary. Events are absolutely necessary in making the community. Now, who does it? Different story. I don't care. As long as they're done. Now, the second and most important issue is we're talking about economic development. We're talking about organizations that may be leading or may be coordinating. This is all almost irrelevant. What is relevant is who. Who is the individual that has or will have the experience, the skills to do what the DDA wants done in the district. Economic development is a lot of things to a lot of people. Within the county, the economic development needs vary. What is needed within the DDA that is a 90% built up area is different from the economic development needs of the manufacturers in our area, different from the workforce creation enhancement needs that the manufacturers and the hospital and everybody else has.
I guess I would probably have, I do have a different opinion of that.
Well, believe me, I work in a lot of communities with dealing with economic development and redevelopment. And you're not going to get easily one person that has both sets of skills. A person who can walk in a manufacturing site, in a factory, and understand the language that the factory manager is speaking, which is different from the economic development, which is primarily redevelopment in a built-out DDA district. There are no people like that. There are few in the state, and you're not going to have them for 70, 80, or 100,000. Okay? So, what comes down to, and currently, there is not a single person in any of the organizations, call it AES, DDA, Chamber, County, there is not a single person that has the skills or that experience. If there is someone, then I would like to know who that person is. So, in terms of the structure, I think that's very workable. There's all kinds of setups we can use. I want to know who is going to provide these services to the DDA. Not what organization, what person. If any of the other organizations or a new entity has that person, then I would be the first one to say, yeah, we'll take 50%, 70%, whatever percent of the time with that person. But who is it?
Well,
That's what it comes down to.
Some of these, it's amazing to me. Some of these conversations, I can remember even when my father he had the House of Flavors property, and his business was right there. And it's like the same darn conversations all these decades later, is that we can't get off the starting block. We cannot, we spin our wheels a lot in this community. And one of the biggest things I would say is that we need to pull together as a group to understand what economic development is. And economic development, if you walk through, if I talk to Terry Walker, if I talk to Thad, if I talk to the chamber, whatever, we're all gonna get different ideas.
And that's a problem.
And that's why I'm saying bring it all together, because the ability for the downtown district to be thriving is dependent on the economics of the community in the county as well. I do have a different view on that, because the city and our downtown is our brand. I cannot sell any property in the county to any organization until I show them what we got downtown. So if we start thinking about the fact that this is our priority, our housing, our Wi-Fi, all these things have to support what is going on in our city, which supports what goes on in our county. And we are forgetting, and personally, my feeling is that we keep forgetting that it's a symbiotic relationship, that we as a city and as a downtown will not thrive if the rest of the county does. And yeah, I mean, it's like we need each other.
I don't disagree. What I'm saying is that if we are looking at obtaining services for the DDA from within an organization, whatever that organization is, it doesn't matter. That organization has to have the skills, has to have the experience, the person.
That's in our contract.
But
you have to.
Yeah, but
You have to
you
design
can
it.
have all the contracts you want, but
I'm not on a board to micromanage.
But
And that is what I have watched this board do over and over and over.
then that organization then needs to have at least 2 people with different
Okay,
skill sets.
I understand what you're, I
But without
understand,
it, I would not consider it.
stop. I understand what you're saying, we understand what Karen's saying, we're not going to necessarily solve all the problems today. What your point is, and I'll summarize, is the makeup of the person or people doing the work will translate into the quality of the work product.
It's right here. This is exactly what we want.
Sure. Who's going to?
We need to be successful, we need to make sure that the right person is hired
Right.
through that process. Now, I'll frame this a different way, and that is, if we take your description, and I believe it, the most beneficial way of doing this was if the Manufacturers Council had a full-time economic developer who was focusing on their needs, that we had a full-time economic developer that was focusing on our district, that the city had still a community development person, that the county had a role as well. And all those people work together well. Lots of ifs there. But then each person could have the skills that worked on that organization's interests. But you're talking probably $500,000 in salary for all of those people. We don't, as a community, have that kind of resources. What can we accomplish then? If we can't get the ideal, what can we accomplish? We could go and do $70,000 and maybe if we're lucky, get somebody, or we could be in the same situation we are and hire someone that's underqualified and in 2 years leaves. Is that the best we can do? Or is there something in between? I believe there is, but the chamber doesn't have anybody hired. So at this point, it's all pure speculation. I think we're talking about what it is we're looking for, and then we can see it if it can happen. My belief is that it's a 50-50 shot whether or not, once we come to, if we were 100% aligned in what we wanted, that it would actually happen, because there's so many other variables and moving parts. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue.
We don't know what are the needs. We have very well-defined needs.
Yes.
Do any of the other organizations have anything
Well,
like that?
let me use an example.
Yeah.
All right? We just went into an agreement. I am posting, and it'll be in the paper tomorrow, that I need a court worker, okay? I need a social worker to help with the courts. We're gonna do a contract with them. They're gonna contract with us. They said, this is what we need. These are the qualifications, this is what I want, and this is how much time. So they're gonna show up at the interviews, we're gonna set them all up, and they're gonna help to hire this position, and we're gonna fulfill that contract.
Who is we?
CMH.
Okay, so that person then is going to be an independent contractor.
No, it's part of our organization. See, now if I were the 501(c),
Mhm.
and we go to them and we say, we need these qualifications, this is the kind of person we're looking for. They're gonna say, okay, we can do that if they're smart. And I don't know who this 501(c) is. I don't know who they are.
But it
But
doesn't
if
matter.
this organization, they're gonna go, sure, I can do that, let's do that. And then we're gonna set up interviews, they're gonna look for the position that we want, set up interviews, and that probably would include members of this group. And you hire the person that works for that position. Now, if we get involved and all these other organizations get involved, I think that your issue will be met. I think there will be a manufacturing director, person working there, and I think there would be one that would be more retail and community-based. I think they would have enough money in that
But
501(c).
forget about the money. Leave the money aside. Before talking about money, we need to talk about what is it that other organizations need specifically. We are specific. We say we need 1, 2, 3, 4 things. These are not generic things. These are specific to the DDA. Now, the manufacturers, through the chamber or through the Industrial Development Corporation, which I thought I didn't think it was functional anymore, but do they have some needs that they have identified? Say, we need someone to work with the Federal Chamber of Commerce, to promote exports to China, whatever.
So
Do
what?
they have anything like that?
So if they
I'm
just,
sure they got a job description that they'll.
Where is
present.
it?
I don't know,
Well,
but it's not my
there.
position.
Yeah,
to hear
but
about
you know
that.
what, though? The issue is that for the last 2 years since this conversation started, nobody has come in and said, these are our needs, and this is the type of person that we need to have.
And that's
What do you guys need?
that's what we're trying to do today, is come up with what our needs are and then take it to somebody and say,
To whom? To this 503C?
First, we have to see
other
if we
organizations
want to
that-
hire individually, or are we looking outside? That's all we're asking.
Actually, if I had my choice, I would rather look outside. I would rather look at an existing organization that is available elsewhere, that has the capabilities to provide different services, some of which are the ones we need. But I do not see that organization.
So that.
Where is it?
It doesn't
It
exist.
could be developing, we don't know.
Right, it
It's
does,
not
let's say,
developing.
let's say it doesn't
Yeah.
exist,
But see,
can it be created?
Yes.
I think it can be created.
Okay, then where is it?
It's to be created.
To be created. So, what I'm hearing is, DDA, show me what you can bring in dollars, and then we'll figure out how we're.
No,
we're
No,
set
no,
up.
absolutely
no,
not.
no.
absolutely not.
The first step is, we need to decide what we need, which I think we're agreed that our job description is
What we
the
need.
starting point. Now, it can be fleshed out, obviously, because it wasn't created with services in mind,
That's our goal.
but it still is kind of our point of truth. Then I think the next step is, we've identified already a set of organizations in this community. The county's talking about these same things.
Which county? Are you talking about
Manistee
county
County
government?
Manistee County government,
Okay,
yes.
different.
Filer
areas.
DDA is involved. The chamber has expressed interest. The city, I don't know, should be interested. The next step would be for those organizations to come together and agree on a governance model as to how this organization would operate and report. Then once you get that, then it's basically following through on creating that organization and then hiring and then dealing with what the contracts are for the services that organization is going to provide. And again, like I said earlier, I give it 50-50 whether or not all of that stuff can happen in this community. But I will say is if we're not out there pushing it and we take our resources elsewhere, it's not going to happen.
Barry, let me reverse things. Why not the DDA become that regional organization where other entities that have needs can tell us, okay, we need chamber, we need 1, 2, 3 things.
Because that's
See?
not our mission.
Well, just a second now, just a second. It's our mission as much as it is the mission of the other organizations that we're talking about. But what I'm saying is, I don't know what the other organizations want and what they bring to the table.
And we don't have to know.
But let me give you this, T. Are
Then
you
I would
gonna
rather-
spend the
I would rather
time putting the
see us-
501(c)(3) together? Are you gonna organize this? Are people from this board willing to spend the time to put this together? Because I remember only 45 minutes ago when nobody could have the ability to take notes. So we're talking big commitments.
There is no question about it. But you've been in business long enough to know that whoever is organizing it runs it and influences.
Well, are we ready to do that too? Because personally, I think this board, as everybody knows, I've been very vocal, I think we have some problems. I think we get too much in the minutia. We sit and we get ourselves caught on these small little details that really don't have a lot of importance. And then we are micromanaging from moment to moment.
But why have we micromanaging from moment to moment for the last year and a half, 2 years?
Oh, that's been-
There is one reason. Well, that's what I know because that's what I have seen. If we have an experienced DDA director, then believe me, we're not going to have to micromanage. Because in other communities that I work with, where they have a director that has the experience, the maturity to handle all of the aspects of the job, the board does very little. The manager does very little. It's that person that does it. The reason we have been forced to micromanage is because we haven't had that experience for 5 years.
Well.
The last time
going
that
back to
things
our
ran
list.
by themselves was when 3 directors ago.
You know what? Hearing all this, I still think we need to have our own director for the DDA.
Yeah,
And we need to have somebody else to run the festivals.
I can tell you something, we're gonna think there are 3 hires in 3 years.
Yep.
You know what, I mean, I can throw stats out that nobody would believe, they don't wanna believe. But you know what, Travis Alder came in when we became Main Street DDA as a DDA director. He saw a better opportunity to move. If memory serves me right, looking back in the historical documents, he came in the 40-something range for salary with no benefits. Patrick Kay came in. Patrick Kay didn't leave because he wanted to leave, it was a mutual agreement to leave. It was a performance issue. So we bring Tyler in. All of a sudden, we got $70,000, which is what, $10,000 more than we're paying Tyler that's available. Then we probably could have kept it if we'd been a little more generous. You know, I went through that at 5K. I accepted a job with the state after 4.5 years at 5K. Mary Truck says, well, what are you going to make there? Well, I'm going to start at 58. What if I give you a $20,000 pay raise today? I said, you know what, if I was worth $20,000 today, if I was worth $10,000 last year, I had accepted the job, I'm moving. You know, I don't think it's all about money. You get school systems that spend $9,000 a student that don't have any better performance than school systems that spend $5,000.
Exactly.
It is about the person and the environment and the support that person gives. As T says,
Precisely.
you can't micromanage them to death. You have to let them work their thing. Because there isn't anybody here that's an economic developer. None of us. But yet, we want to share our expertise with them as we go on to work and tell them what to do. And that is just kind of nonsense.
Yeah, that's what I was not, that's precisely what I'm not accustomed to. Is I thought the board here, the board's function is to support,
Yes.
not to go, like I've never experienced this on any board I've sat on.
Yep.
Where, like, every single thing that Tyler did, it's like really? I want him to be able, just to be able to come back and be the ones telling us what's going on. I don't understand this.
Right,
In
exactly.
Canada,
And
that
that's-
was even after a lot of time that a number of us have spent with Tyler. Barry, Valerie, myself, we spent tons of time with Tyler. And even we come to a board meeting and still we have to, micromanage. So that's why I put so much emphasis on the
I would be
experience.
asking though, is that the
And that's why-
nature, is that the nature of us? Is it because
Sure.
it's felt like that to
Yeah.
whomever it is who's been in the capacity? Like that, well, I don't have a choice. This is
I think part of it is the nature of how we organized as a board in our committee structure.
okay.
Because
I don't understand.
we basically say, Tyler, you should go off and do these things, and we'll have these committees that do the rest. Whether it's design, ER.
That's right, because we have the Main Street,
Well, some of that goes
We
back
have
to how we were organized under Main
right,
Street.
we have to break from.
So then, the director is doing a piece. Each committee is doing a different piece, not necessarily all coordinated. And then the meetings come together and you get all the committee reports and, well, we're off doing this, and we're off doing this, and we're off doing this. And Tyler's like, which way do I go? I mean, you've got all of, so I mean, our committee structure has indicated that we are an active board, that we're expected to be doing and producing things. That's not true of every organization. It's true of some boards. Generally, it's true of boards that don't actually have staff, where the board has to do everything. But, you know, it's kind of a weird model that we have.
It is a weird one. I'm gonna tell you, you know, we have a planning and zoning commission, we have a historic district commission. I mean, we've got all kinds of parks commission, PEG commission and all that. And they pretty much do their own thing. When they come together with a thing like recommending we drop from 7 to 5 for membership so we can have a quorum for the PEG, you take that to council and you make a presentation and council says yes or no. Once that decision is made, then you move forward. And I would think committees here would be in the same light. They'd be semi-autonomous. They'd put their thing together. They'd come into the board and they'd say, here's what we propose, and the board says yea or nay, and you move forward.
Are those paid employees?
Then is when your director gets involved in it. What's that?
Are those paid employees? These committee members that you're referring to?
There are,
Not ours, I'm talking about your examples.
there's council appointment and mayoral appointment, but they are appointed people to a finite period of time. They can't spend money, they don't have budgets.
The only, I think what he's saying is.
They don't
these
receive a
people
per diem
get
or any type of
compensation.
salary.
The only ones that do small amount is the board of review.
Board review, yeah.
Nobody else.
There's some compensation involved there.
Okay.
So, you know, it's like, okay, and you know, the next thing we gotta look at is our bylaws. You know, our bylaws talk about executive director or economic/executive director. And this body certainly has the authority to advertise, interview, and make a selection and a recommendation to city council to hire that person. What city council doesn't have a say on is if you turn around and hire this part-time or full-time assistant. The board has the discretion to make that call. Now, another thing I've done, because I like to be thorough, is I've had a lengthy conversation with the city attorney. He said, contracting for a service. You know, where you say, okay, Todd, you're interested in providing a service. We're interested in your experience and your ability to do this service. Here's how much we're willing to pay. Since, you know, we're not on the hook for any benefits, we're not on the hook for payroll taxes or anything else. You are a contract employee of this board. George said he doesn't see any problem with that. Now, he says a shared service is problematic. That you get into the thing, you know, can a person serve two masters? And I would agree with Karen. I think she would agree that I often take a bigger than the city outlook on things. You know, what's good for the townships, what's good for Chronic, what's good for Eastlake is generally going to be beneficial to the city also. Tomorrow we're going to see that in the dedication of the sewer system for Fowler Township. Something we should have done 25 years ago. That people have, you know, argued about and been unreasonable about for a long period of time. But that being said, I want someone that is focused on the downtown development area. I don't want someone that sees something come in or fields an inquiry and looks at that and sees that as a better fit somewhere else as opposed to working to fit it in our environment. You know, and there's a lot of things that we talk about. You know what you said, economic development. What is economic development? When the governor came in for Rising Tide, I loved his definition of economic development. Good paying, family, sustaining jobs. You know, if we have jobs, we're going to have other elements that come in here. And then you talk about a thriving environment, you know. I do statistics. Our median household income in the city of Manistee is $6,000 less than the county of Manistee. Our median home prices are $20,000+ less than the county median prices. 90% of the low-income subsidized housing in the county is in the city. You know, when you talk about economic development and you talk about some of the proposals that have come in, and then I go to the county summit, and AES gets up there and says, oh my, is Manistee really a redevelopment-ready community? Because Joe Hollander and Third Coast don't think so. And you know what? I don't care what Joe Hollander and Third Coast think, because they are tax credit, tax abatement, they're bringing nothing to the table that values the city and revenue,
It
and
erodes,
they're consuming services.
it erodes it.
And I'll point out to the people that say, Jim, you're the one that caused that to fall. You know, you and City Council, Joe Hollander withdrew his application because he got frustrated with the HDC. And Third Coast didn't reapply for tax credits after they didn't get them on the first round, because maybe they did what I did, is they went to the Vista site and looked, and there were 54 applicants, and they ranked 36 in the numeric scoring for the funds, and they were asking for half of the 16 million that was available. They didn't stand a snowball chance in the world of getting the $8 million funding. So, you know, they went somewhere else. But by the way, that would have cost us $1.9 million in taxes loss to the city. When they came in and did the municipal service agreement, you know what that did? When you crunch the numbers from the performer, and I don't know how to read performance, they put an extra $180,000 in developers' pockets and took that $180,000 away from the counties and village entities in the county.
And those two were AES-driven projects.
And
I'm just
very
saying,
strongly
I'm just saying,
chamber
that's an
supporting
example.
projects.
That's an
Right.
example,
Exactly.
that's an example of you have to look out what is best for the city. Now,
That's,
okay, is Edgewater and North Channel good for the city? Absolutely. But you know what was it? $4.8 million of private investment there?
Between the two of them, yeah, about 5.
I mean, I don't think anybody has any doubt that, you know, the downtown is really a primary, and we have to do that. So, you know, I think that everybody recognizes that. I just don't think anybody is arguing that. And as long as the city, the downtown, has a, well, if we get rid of the blight, which, you know, seems to me to be just a colossal mess, you know, and I've been yelling this since I've been on there, that, you know, I don't know, have we written letters? Have we pushed it? Have we put an article in the paper that's, you know, an open letter, basically saying, we're tired of this stuff? Barry hit it. We're the worst for communicating. You know, we're worrying about this, but yet in the meantime, the majority of probably the people on River Street think, what the hell is the DDA doing? And you know what, when I owned my business, that's what I thought too. What the hell are they doing?
Karen, what I take from what Jim said is that if the DDA is not in a leading role in economic development, then even though we're going to be on a contract basis, contracting for certain services, the leading organizations are the ones that have promoted more and more low-income housing in the city, especially within the DDA.
yes.
So even though on paper that doesn't show, in reality, that's what's happening. And that is my concern about the organization who is going to be running this, influencing this, because as you know, once you are in a position of managing it, you're going to find ways to make things happen the way you want to happen.
And I think
So,
but I think my perspective is by us not acting. If we act, I think we would actually be contributing more financially than any other group in the county. And therefore, we should be leading that
Did
organization.
you see this board structure here? Even though this is a
We
very
said
draft.
not to look at that.
I know,
That is a
but-
non-starter.
but
That is a
That's what
non-starter.
I've been talking about.
And
Look at this rising tide steering committee.
we
It is
we know that,
stacked
but,
against us.
okay,
It is stacked.
We could either ignore the rest of the world, put our head in the sand and do our own thing, or we can try to take a lead and fix these problems.
Bingo.
I'm not sure the problems are fixable, but I do know that if we're not trying to fix them, we're going to get all of those negative things.
I agree with you, that's why I'm saying, what about, instead of us looking at buying services from another organization, then we create or we cause to create.
That's what we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about, yes. That's why Karen said 503C. She never mentioned chamber because that's a non-starter. For anything to move forward, it has to be an organization independent of any other organization that we can have significant influence over. If that's not going to occur, we're not interested, my opinion.
Barry mentioned bringing the entities to a meeting, to a gathering, to a conversation. And that is really where it would start. Because any one of those groups could say, well, we'll host the 501c, we'll do it, or it doesn't matter. But the first piece is that, I'm interested in something different because I really believe strongly that we've been in a silo approach. This is our district, and this is all that matters. Yes, however, it is hooked to something bigger. So we have to have, we have territorial problems within organizations here because
No kidding.
yeah, and it's like this is an opportunity to break all that, to bring them all together and say we're done. You know, if the Visitors Bureau wants to invite everybody else but the DDA to a meeting, come on, this is getting petty. Yeah, but this is what we do. Because it's like we're competing for everything. I don't know what it is.
Well,
I don't know why we are.
What do you think has been driving the previous attempts in the last year or so?
Previous one.
Attempts by the chamber to set up the economic development group in the county? One thing, they need our cash. That's what it is. They don't give.
Two, they don't know. They're asking, they don't know.
They don't know what.
They don't know economic development either. They're asking the same question. One, yes, like us, you need money. Two, what does it mean?
But-
And they're trying to get consensus.
What I'm
people.
saying is, I agree with you, they don't know economic development. But they come to the city, they come to the DDA and they say, we want to be that economic development and you guys support us. I cannot do that. Personally, I cannot do that.
And I went right back and I told them that. And I sat in their meeting and I said, you are giving us a great proposal. However, it has nothing because it has no outcome to it. And that's when I went back and said, if you're gonna do this, you have to understand what's the outcomes gonna be. What am I buying? It's like, well, just come to my shop, or, come to our restaurant, we got good food.
We'll find
We-
something,
No, no.
Well, and that's why in having any discussions, any initial discussions with any of the organizations that may want to be part of that, I would want to know what are their needs.
And that's where we all get together and talk. And then define what is economic development. And I think your point is a good point. We have economic development that goes to manufacturing, we have economic development that goes to our downtown and to our merchants. All right, but they're different.
Essentially, there are three, there are
But,
4 areas.
but
It's
here
the
would be,
manufacturers, the retail, the downtown, and the housing.
and then here would be a place where we would put those all on the table and say, here are 4 places we have to address.
Well,
By the time this group, whether it's us, whether it's the city, whoever proposes this 503C, By the time the group's done, it knows now that it has 4 primary areas that it has to address. And then underneath that, here's what the manufacturers need. Here's what retail needs. Here's what the DDA itself, or however you want to divide it up. That's a process of building.
Well, it's a process, I agree. And while I don't know what they all need, I have a good feel for what they all need, because, I've worked with all of those different groups elsewhere, not here. But why then isn't the City Housing Commission involved in this? Talking about housing?
There
Why
is a
don't
housing
they?
group that is working. There is a huge group that's been meeting. They're having a big summit here in 2 weeks? So there is a group that is working on the housing issue. There is a group that's working on the
We're not working on city
communications.
housing, we're working on countywide.
All
Just
housing,
Yes.
all housing, because the city is in that. We
The housing,
recognize the
no,
city has
the
issues.
city administration or the City Housing Commission? Two different things.
City housing authority does the.
Okay, so now, I don't want to get on housing, and I don't want to get off track to the fact
But
that
it's
we are looking
important.
at a position for our role as the DDA.
Sure.
And if we're going to put in housing in here,
It is,
That we want
it
them-
is housing.
then we're going to want this person to participate in all of those housing groups and all of those things.
Because-
So let's add that into our time frame of this person
Well-
being able to participate, because I'm going to 3 or 4 meetings per week as a commissioner, and this person's going to be sitting probably in most of those meetings.
And if you look at our economic development outline, housing is a major component, even though it doesn't say housing, because we're talking about redeveloping all the upstairs, the vacant upstairs. Talking about houses, we've got about 50, 60 units we can create. So at the same time that people say, oh, we need to build new housing, you don't need to build new housing because you got the space for the housing. That's what our economic developer would concentrate on. So,
Is that the priority, or do you want the?
oh, it is a high priority because housing downtown is the #1 priority, because in addition to providing housing, and provide housing just for the county, not for the city, brings economic activity in the downtown. People walking around,
So
people
why
going
would
to the
you
store.
take the time of your economic developer to develop the housing? Why wouldn't you go out and work with the groups that specialize in housing and development?
Well, that's what the that's what the DDA director
So,
does. That's a major part of the DDA's director role.
I have done a lot of housing development, 25 homes I managed. And let me tell you, it's not an easy job, and it requires a lot to get it through, as you
Well,
know, what
it's-
you've just gone through.
it's-
So what is the economic development person gonna be able to do
The
while they're
econ-
dealing with this?
The economic development person, the DDA economic development person, is the one that is going to push the development of the vacant upstairs.
Correct.
He or she is the one that is going to bring the new MISTA funds through MEDC. That is,
It's the time.
We are.
oh, it's going, that's the majority of the
T,
time.
while I
Yes.
agree with you,
Who else
it is
gonna do
a priority, we attempted that the last 2 years and found out that none of the building owners care, and we gave up on it. So,
Why did we? Because it's a very difficult
it
grant
is,
process.
it is.
Well,
And
they're choosing.
and therefore, that may not be where our resources are best spent when we have a limited amount of resources. So, I don't disagree with you that it's important, but I'm not sure that we can make progress and only focus on that. There are many other things in the mix that make the downtown vibrant. That's a longer term thing.
Then I
Needs
think
energy
you better
focus
read
on it.
our, read the the director's
I don't
responsibilities.
think, I think we're, like, this is where it gets to, like, you know, this organization has to be the one that is, it's so petty. I can't even begin to, like, tell you how petty that is, because in all my listening to all this, why would you take someone for economic development and make them have to be the ones, their major focus now is housing? That makes no sense to me. Why wouldn't you collaborate with what you have here? You have a professional who works on housing.
Who is the professional?
The housing, the people in the house, yes, because.
Wait now.
There's no professional there.
That works.
There is
North-
no-
I'm talking about networking with people who are involved. What's wrong with having a relationship or a collaboration with someone and not having to be like,
The person,
yeah, I don't get it.
Show me
I don't understand it.
who who knows and who is going to spend the time to develop housing in an existing vacant properties in the downtown.
Well, as Karen said, I sat in on one of the groups.
Who is the person?
It was through networks.
It's over on, right across from the third level, where is the group there across?
Out at the ISD. Okay.
Across from the city, it's across from the city county building. It's
AES?
on.
The former, or the eight, yeah, that's the former.
I don't know what
AES.
the letters are, but I can give you the.
AES.
Alliance for Economic Success.
No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
It was rolled out there.
They're trying to get together all like the banks, the credit unions, all of those types of entities.
That's for financing.
But
No, it's not for finance.
What is it?
I'm trying to explain to you, T, just because you don't know that it exists, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Then tell me.
I'm
who
trying
it
to
is.
tell you.
No, you're not telling me.
Networks Northwest
Okay,
has
I know.
been the individuals or the group that has spearheaded this. Now, if you were to attend the HSCB, the Human Service Council Board, you would see that that same initiative is being fostered throughout the whole HSCB. So there are workshops and there has been forums for people to participate in. So now they're putting it together in regards to bringing in the financing pieces to find what, to hook all this together so that when we have the ability to have this full survey and study done, we will be able to take that document and work on it.
Right.
Now that's when we need a
And,
person.
and if you're talking different things, T is talking from his
Downtown.
boots on the ground experience that it takes a person 20 hours a week, full resources to make these projects move forward.
Right.
You're talking about a study and a plan that really aligns resources. Those are all necessary components. His point is that we're not talking in our planning here of enough resources to do these things. And I agree, but that's our problem. We're trying as a community to do, our needs are this big, our resources are this big, and we can't agree at all where to start. Now, we've probably spent, I'm not sure we're being productive anymore, and that's probably my fault as chair of this, committee or board today. Let's try to rein it in and try to see how we can wrap this up. And I'm going to start off by saying something, and I think it's along the lines of where we've been, and that is, I'm hearing a good amount of input that says the belief is we just need to go forward and hire somebody. It's the easiest thing to do, and we'll have control over it. I understand all of those thoughts. I think a subcontext of Karen's proposal is, as you see, there's 1, 2, and 3. 1 is $70,000, 2 is $85,000, and 3 ranges up to $120,000. I think Karen's belief is for us to be successful in going down that path, we need to spend a lot more money than we've currently allocated. That may or may not be true. There's always the luck of the draw. Like, ooh, we found the perfect person. Right? They're retired and they just moved here and looking for something to do. So it's not that it can't be done at 70. It becomes more difficult than if we were allocating 120. We don't have 120 without completely rethinking how we spend our money and our budget. But no, the other option is basically to pursue a path that creates an organization that then hires one or more individuals to fulfill needs. That's likely a longer term process that may or may not be successful. In both cases, no individual exists in the community that tomorrow is going to step in and do this. I believe we should continue as we've kind of been, pursuing both. If we find the right person that's willing to work for us under our terms, we should probably hire that person. If we can't find them, we continue looking, we maybe reevaluate our budget, maybe start going down this path of raising that amount while we're pursuing a broader range plan. The mistake we can't make is going through an interview process, 1, 2, 3 rounds, and just getting so tired of it that we just hire someone because they've got a pulse and are close enough. Because that's where we will be repeating this process 2 years from now. If we're going to hire, we really need to make sure that we're hiring to our job description and we do not compromise on that just because it's the easiest thing to do.
We support you.
Good summation.
One
So
question.
is that?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a logistical issue. Go ahead.
One question. What is a realistic timeline of when we can get our TIF renewed?
I think there's, tomorrow at 11 is the meeting for considering posting. Who else is on that committee? Getting the job. Post, where we're gonna post this thing, how we're gonna go about post. We're not gonna put a salary, we already decided that. We're gonna put the qualifications out there based on the job description. And you know what, let's cast the net and see what we get.
Only one thing though. If we
get it posted,
if we get some candidates, if we don't have our TIF renewed, and we get whatever number of candidates, and they know that we don't have our TIF renewed, and the DDA is only going to be around for maybe a year, year and a half, is that really a good thing to do?
Do you think that renewing the TIF is or will be undermined?
I think it's at risk.
I
And
think it's
that's
a question.
tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
At risk.
we'll know a lot more after tonight's meeting whether or not the consensus of the council is one way or another.
So who is gonna be at tonight's meeting?
I can go.
I
we
will
got a chance 2 years ago.
go to observe. I can't speak, on, the TIF renewal plan. I'm not qualified for that, but I will.
I'll show up too, I
Yeah.
mean, but I don't.
Rachel and I cannot be there tonight.
Well, you
so-
guys have the TIF plan, right?
Yes, I have a copy of it, just.
But they weren't involved
I
in
will
the
be
process. So, I mean, it sounds like you're gonna be there, you're gonna be
You
there,
were
Todd
part of
will
the
be there.
TIF
You
committee,
can be.
right?
Okay, well,
I'll be
fair
there.
enough.
You'll be
Yeah,
there.
so
So
both you guys
basically,
will be there.
there are 5 people, yourself, but you're sitting on the other
The wrong
side.
side.
Well, in some ways, we have an ally
I
that
know.
can guide, but cannot control
I
the
just gave him
conversation.
a hard time.
I have researched and I have some pretty good statistics to support the functioning of the DDA. I'm probably along the line of Nicole in a lot of aspects. I just think that we've been misdirected and haven't been hitting what we should be hitting. But, you know, when you hire a person, you need to be
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You need to be effective in what you expect of them. And they need to be a town that's supportive of the individual. I mean, you got to record it once, I get a little cautious on what I say. You know, when I vote no on something, and 6 people vote yes, or it's a 5-2, you know what, when the majority makes the decision, I take it as my job to do my best to make sure that whatever they just voted for is successfully implemented, or that person is supported. I don't undermine them. I think the use of the term consensus, when you have majority, is very much overused, because a consensus is when all people are in agreement and supportive of a particular point of view. That's a consensus. Not when it's 6-1, not when it's 5-2. And I think, yeah, I mean, we could pursue other things. If we're going to look at contracting, I think we need to do an RFP and cast a wide net, and not say, you know, the chamber is our ally. And then I'm going to tell you personally, I'm opposed to the chamber, because the chamber is a political entity. And I don't like that brought into things. They pick and choose. I want someone working for the DDA, whether it's an employee or whether it's a contract person, that is accountable and responsible to the director, as the bylaws say. Once a month, report to us. Great. I mean, we need to have interaction. Nicole, the outpost, and other people need to be able to pick the phone up and talk to the DDA director or the person representing the community on a day in, day out basis with their concerns. You know, not wait to the end of the month or be filtered through a process. I mean, it needs to be real-time interactive. Just a thought. Now, I sat through the interviews last time. I don't know how many people sitting here did. And I was asked, I wasn't part of it, I just sat through them. I was asked when it was done, what do you think? And I just re-advertised it. I'm looking at the position description that was posted. And unfortunately, that was the only 2 people that applied for it. And the concern then was, well, you know, the TIF's 3 years out, that might not draw many people. Now the TIF is a year out. You gotta have the same concerns there. But I think we get a better flavor tonight. This is, you know, I don't go to the individual council members and survey them for their opinion before we get to a public session. I probably have some latitude to do that, but I know there are members that are opposed to Vermilion's DDA TIF. And I think they just haven't heard the right argument or haven't seen what they're looking for.
And I think we're back to, I think as a board, we have done not a very good job at communicating, especially with the city council. We're not there, we're not participating, I mean, when we lost our director, I would have, at that next meeting, we should have been there, should have been representing, saying, we've got it, we've got a nets, we're gonna do this, we're just not that good at that. But again.
And the interaction was constantly even before that, as just the executive director who is the spokesman for the board of the DDA, okay? I mean, having other DDA members attend a council meeting, having periodic work sessions or presentations, you know, hey, you know, coming in and saying, hey, you know, here's where we're at with the American Cleaners. Or here's where we're at with this.
Here's the conflict that we're having with the employees of the DPW. You know, it's like, you know, instead of just knowing that we have this conflict and then not dealing with it, just has let things kind of.
No, not my job to manage the sanitary sewer overflow issue and the corrective action plan and stuff like that. But you know what? I asked that question, or rather asked that question at every council and work session. Where are we give us an update. And Spicer Group is prepared to give us an update at every one of those meetings, because we're talking millions of dollars on a tight timeline. And I think, as we've come through a process of the organization, you're the only one of the group of things that falls under the city council that has a renewal period, but the last time was years and years ago. Now, you're actually expired on the TIP renewal period, and you're existing right now on the bond issue.
I want to go back to, I made a comment, and it was like, as I played it back in my head, in regards to the taking the minutes, it wasn't that nobody should take the minutes, but it was in regards to this, it takes time. I mean, even when I said, oh, I do it, it's like, damn, because we have to remember how much time all of this stuff is taking, and it's going to take our time too. So the more that we can get to be a board of oversight instead of board of management, it's better for all of us, because I know everybody here has busy schedules. And, it's like, and adding more stuff, and that's what I was trying to get to in regards to this job. And it's not 80-20, I screwed up, it's 70-30. So 70% of that economic development, that we want them to do all of these tasks and then focus 20 hours a week maybe on housing, you're gonna burn this person out. It's just not, to me, it's not reasonable. We need more. We need more than one person. That's just my thought.
I agree.
Okay, so it sounds like there was kind of agreement on kind of my
I tried to take minutes and I can't. I don't know what to write down.
statement is that
I wouldn't know where to begin.
we're going to continue the path the board has discussed of going down the hiring process.
Right.
Again, I would highly recommend we do not short circuit that process and just hire anybody. But I also think that there's enough passion by certain individuals, myself included, of pursuing a partnership that is no resemblance to that Chamber of Commerce partnership, but really is approaching it from the organizations that want the services talking as to how we can do, as opposed to a particular organization who has their own agenda coming in and saying, will you fund our goals?
I think, Barry, that the whole thing about the chamber, it's like, I don't, and again, everybody has their own personal feelings, and I think some of the personal feelings are in here about AES and chamber and all these different groups. The thing that I like about the chamber proposal is that they at least started something. They were the catalyst to talking to all these different organizations to get people to start going, maybe. Not that they have to be the lead, not that they're the persons to run things, but I like the fact that they at least planted a seed in everybody's brain so that we can think of something different than just status quo.
Well, I agree with you that they started this.
Yeah.
I do question them.
But again,
And in thinking about my
They
comments,
that impacts us.
Yeah,
but in thinking about my comments, and maybe came across too harsh, is the chamber should be one of the parties at that table, most definitely, because they're the only group that is representing in a very direct way private businesses. The others are all governmental entities of one sort or another who have their own issues with how bureaucracy works. At the table needs to be the business community, and that organization that is really the chamber. There is no other really organization that kind of works in their stead. All you could say not developers council, manufacturers council is kind of another organization, but yet in some ways they're almost a subset of the chamber because of how those two groups interact. So I'm not saying that the chamber should not be part of this process. They should, and they play a key role. But I think all the issues stem when they're viewed as leading it. And I think if we were to decide that we should lead it, every other group would look upon us as being, well, they've got their own agenda, we're not gonna work with them. It's never gonna work if one organization is the lead. It has to be the organizations working together to figure out how it's done.
And I think going way back, there was a time when we talked about American Cleaners and having a facility, we talked about the visitor center and the chamber and the DDA, and all the entities being housed, co-located, and then everybody pulled back from that. Now they're kind of like where they're at, and they like a little autonomy. I'm gonna go back to the opinion I got from the city attorney, is that contracting for a service is one thing, sharing a service is problematic.
Sure. Hey, Bill.
Okay, so, I mean, this is just a work session, or at least it should have been noticed that way, so we shouldn't be voting. But I think we already have two committees. We have the hiring committee, and we have, I'll call it, I don't know,
Others.
the other committee, which is basically myself, you, and Val. I think in hearing all of this dialogue, my thoughts on where we need to go are more pointed than they were coming into this, so I think it has helped me figure out a path forward. I don't know if you, unfortunately Val's not here, so we'll have to bring her up to speed.
Yeah.
Does the board think that it still makes sense to pursue both of these in parallel or not?
Yeah, that would.
Okay. I mean, you're kind of one of the ones that were very skeptical about
I'm
any
very
sort-
skeptical,
and-
and I would want to say some specifics,
That's
but I
trust
like,
me.
I've been doing way too long. No, I think I would like to see some specifics.
Yes.
Because as you know, the devil is in the
It's in the
details.
details.
So,
And
You know,
those details can be as fine as what our bylaws allow us to do.
Right.
I mean, there's all sorts of details that we haven't even thought of yet.
And it's the right person. Everyone knows how
Everything
much,
is, right.
how, even when I was on the county board, how AES drove me crazy because there was no accountability. You mentioned having something to hand out to specific people looking into the community. Kathy Moore, who worked for AES, there were 3 or 4 booklets that she has. They were published, identifying housing, schools, statistics, everything, ready to send to these people. I mean, it was still a person at the top, in my opinion. And that person, I just think is so important.
I would
Plus,
love
he
to
worked-
hear for that.
Pardon?
I would
Oh,
love to
I
hear for
would.
that. I'll be good at DDA director.
Absolutely.
But I think that's another example, it's like, I know that you guys went through, I can only speak for myself, because we're, a group of several commissioners.
Right.
But, the city council kind of said, all right, we're holding you accountable, this is what we're looking for, this is what we
Yeah.
want, and boom, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Came around to us, and it's like, you get 1 year, we're holding you accountable, we're gonna do this, it's, new game, people, and boom, it's done. So we've said we're done, but it's like,
I know you.
so coming to this type of group or whatever we plan to do, accountability is important, you are right. And it would be the same thing. You can't do the job, then you're not gonna have the job. And I have, I'm always, I'm always saying I hire slow, but I fire fast. And it's like, you get the right person, but if they're not the right person, then you do.
They're gone, absolutely.
In our last work session before our last council session, when we were debating those dogs on River Street, and it was 4-3 in favor of allowing dogs on River Street in a designated area, and I was opposed to it. At the end of that, I made a comment. I said, I hope the 4 people, the majority that have spoke on this, that now have staff and the attorney going together to prepare an ordinance or the same mindset. And when it comes into the council meeting, that it's not shot down by people that have changed their mind and we waste all this time and energy. And I think that happens way too often, is everybody's kind of in agreement and set in a direction, and then you get there, and then it's like, buyer's remorse and second thoughts. It's a waste of our time.
Okay, are we done?
We're done,
See you tomorrow.
Motion to adjourn?
yes.
So
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Chicken salad wrap.
Yes.